Hello, everyone. I think it's been a big break of about 5 to 6 months. The last episode that me and Pavan Bhaiya did was in probably what March or April, but between these 5 to 6 months, there's a lot of things that probably happened in our own lives. Of course, a trip back home, and then Pawan Bhaiya being blessed with a baby boy, and then we have a new cricket fan, and of course, he being busy with work, me being very busy with work, and of course, we did not get much time to spare for talking about cricket, though we were able to follow and kind of have conversations about it. Nonetheless, we are back here. The Asia Cup 2022 is here. Initially supposed to be held in Sri Lanka, but owing to the crisis out there and travel issues and whatnot, so they eventually moved it to UAE, similar to how it was back in 2021 when it came to World T20 2021, which India was supposed to host. Nonetheless, good amount of cricketing action. Multiple teams playing in a single tournament is always exciting compared to the bilateral series. It's far more exciting because we start off with the India Pakistan Asia Cup game. India has good decent record against Pakistan in Asia Cup, but nonetheless, let's not forget that there's a T20 format, and of course, we all know what necessarily happened in during the World T20 game in at Dubai. Uh, so six teams: India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Hong Kong. Uh, Good amount of games in, of course, UAE, conditions that, to be honest, many of the teams are quite familiar with. So it's going to be interesting. And of course, I mean, before we kind of delve deeper, welcome Pawan Bhaiya, and of course, I want to know your views to start with India, our very own favorite team, and then we can go on as well. Very welcome, Pawan Bhaiya.
Thank you, Ravi, for that warm introduction. And yes, it feels nice to be back and um, quite ready to get back in the thick of our third man cricket podcast. And what better way to start off with the Asia Cup, um, which is played in a format whenever it is close to a one-day World Cup. It's played in the 50-over format, and similarly, this year being the World T20 World Cup year, it's being played in the T20 format. And to start off with the Indian squad, it looks a very promising squad. We all know that at the end of the last World Cup last year, India needed to upgrade and revamp their style of T20 cricket, which was not modern per the standards as opinionated by many. And I think all of us agreed with that. And they have taken um, a turn for the good, I believe, under the leadership of Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid, and have made their intentions very clear that they are going to play uh, the way the modern day T20 game has to be played. And that promises a lot from this team that's been assembled for the Asia Cup. And when we take a look into the squad, I think the main problem for India is going to be what personnel they choose as far as their batting is concerned, because they are spoiled for choices, and some people are not in form as well, and some people have got big reputations to protect. So, what calls are the Indians going to take with respect to the top five will be very interesting to see as far as I'm concerned. The reason I say top five is because Hardik Pandya is now back into the mix, being a vital cog or the linkman between the top order and the lower order, and who provides that balance and the sixth bowling option uh, to say exactly. And that is one thing the captain will need, the cushion of the sixth bowling option. And in the top five, again, like I mentioned, it's going to be a tough choice who are going to play in there. The usual suspects, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli will be there because of the record and the reputation that they have. Surya Kumar Yadav will definitely be there. He is a vital player as far as I'm concerned, one who can break the bank and be that X factor in the team. Then you have got KL Rahul returning to the mix as well after a prolonged absence due to injury. It remains to be seen how much effect he has, provided he has had very little game time and in the couple of matches that he played in Zimbabwe. did not do much, which leaves us with the decision of going for either um, Dinesh Karthik, Rishabh Pant, or even Deepak Huda, who can provide you some handy overs with the ball as well. And he's been in fantastic form and plays that modern brand of T20 cricket like I suggested. Common sense says that they would opt for Rishabh Pant when they see those choices. But it's hard to ignore Dinesh Karthik as well, who has been assigned the role of a finisher based on his exploits in the IPL, and he's done well in the limited opportunities that he's got to display his skill set in the international arena in the last couple of series as well. But one thing that is very clear is that we have got a good spin department. They have taken punt on Ravi Bishnoi and Yuzi Chahal, the two leg spinners, but they also had but they also have the two veterans, Ravichandran Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja. I must admit that I was a bit surprised to see R. Ashwin in the squad, but based on his recent form in the IPL and exploits in Dubai in his previous uh, games, I think they have included him in the squad. I'll not be surprised if they go in with both the leggies plus Ravindra Jadeja in the playing 11. But again, it depends on conditions, as we saw last year. The outcome of the match was dependent heavily on the toss. So I hope it's not the same case this time around. And one aspect which I feel India is, I think, short-staffed on is the pace bowling department. If you see Hardik Pandya is a seamer, but the frontline seamers are only Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Arshdeep Singh, and Avesh Khan. Arshdeep Singh has proved to be uh, a good addition, and he has absorbed the pressure of international games pretty well. Uh, Bowls well at the top of the innings, swings the new ball, and we all know how lethal he can be in the death overs with his change of pace and ability to bowl Yorkers at well. Bhuvneshwar Kumar has had a second lease of life and has come back very strongly in the T20 format, so I think he'll be a vital asset as well. It'll be that third seamer, probably Hardik Pandya will be that third seamer, and God forbid if anything happens to either of those first choice three seamers, then you have to play Avesh Khan, who has been a bit on and off. He's sort of a bowler who can have a good day and concede less than 20 runs in his 4 overs and pick up wickets, but on the other hand, he's very expensive on certain days as well. And in game of fine margins, you would want your best bowling combination. UZCL would be a no-brainer as the first choice spinner as far as I'm concerned, and the supporting cast can be in form of Ravindra Jadeja and Pravid Vishnoi slash R. Ashwin. So yeah, all in all, a good squad, and this will help us gauge what um, combination and what setting will be leading into that World T20. This tournament is obviously a precursor for that. So I think it's all about picking the right people. Even the last World Cup, we had the players, but I think the selection was a bit awry. Uh, some people that got selected for the last World Cup in the form of Rahul Chahar or Varun Chakravarti, they're nowhere to be seen now. So that was impulsive selection that was done at that point of time. I hope um, better sense prevails now and right combination is chosen because India do have the personnel, but what kind of combination they go with and what kind of start they get, lot is based on that. And I think with the new attitude of going for the jugular, even when the pressure is on, and even if you lost wickets, you're going to score aggressively and freely. How true that new um, approach uh, stance will be seen in these high pressure games because you only tend to remember what happens in these multi nation tournaments and the World Cups, uh, leaving aside the bilateral series. So all in all, it's a good prospect, and I think it's a good squad that has been assembled by India. Your thoughts on that, Ravi, before we move on to the Pakistani squad?
Oh, yes. So mainly, I think the biggest, I won't say drawback, but a letdown would be Bumrah's injury. Hopefully, by the World T20, uh, in Australia, he should be back. Uh, I kind of agree, but point being, I'm still not convinced if KL Rahul should necessarily play in the playing 11. That's one concern that I still have. Maybe accommodate someone like a Deepak Huda who may still not necessarily walk into the playing 11 like we all would like to. Can bat, can ball, amazing fielder. So needs to be respected. And of course, I think yeah, someone who can bowl right arm off spin is something that we still may. It's a variety, and I personally don't think R. Ashwin, despite his amazing performances, I'm not very convinced if he should be part of the playing 11. I mean, these are the kind of arguments that I keep having in my head. Bumrah's return for we all know for a fact that Asia Cup is more like it's being played in T20 format for that very reason, wherein it's like a warm-up tournament before teams head to Australia and play in altogether different conditions. Um, Nonetheless, I think the squads that we sent to West Indies or Zimbabwe, gave us more headaches because we happened to perform really well, and then many players, came back, did well. The Shreyas Iyer or Akshar Patel conundrum still exists. Uh, but at the same time, you still have to stick to someone like a KL or even Virat to that matter, right? Rohit is not in the best of the forms either, as in so it's going to be interesting how it would transpire. But coming, I mean, of course, not stepping back or anything. Um, World T20 in Dubai was heavily influenced by toss, and we're pretty much going to see the same thing out here as well. Though that was in October, and this is in I think. Of course, in August, the conditions would largely remain the same. And, I personally think we had a decent playing 11 to go win the cup. But at the same time, the toss factor is heavy, and hopefully luck would be on our side when it comes to, you know, when it comes to this time around with a new captain at the helm of the affairs. So, that's my take on India. Uh, really excited for Arshdeep, did really well. Um Yuzvendra Chahal has been in prime form, and and Bhuvi, though past his prime, has a lot to deliver. So would be interesting. Now, quickly to one of my, I'll say, I think I'll consider them as favorites for all good reasons. That's Pakistan. Um, despite not having Shaheen, despite not necessarily having the same, fiery pace bowling battery like how we saw 6 months ago, or I'm sorry, in fact, a year ago, there's still a team to beat. That's what I personally feel. And, Babar, Rizwan, Fakar, Asif, Iftikhar might get a game, Khushdil Shah, all these are big match players who can come, you know, uh, deliver those strong performances and probably take the game away. Um, and not to kind of it's not like a criticism, but Pakistan in the recent Netherlands in the series against Netherlands, they played a couple of close games. But what needs to be kept in mind is in those very close moments as well, they pretty much held their nerve and saw it through. Of course, a different format now. One thing that will not necessarily go in their favor is the fact that in 2022, I don't think they played any T20 games at all. I think they just played one T20 game against Australia back home. But this format is kind of uh, not very tested to them. Um, and another recent news today is that Mohammad Wasim Jr. is out. Um, I was really curious to see who it would be. I follow a lot of Pakistan meme pages and a couple of podcasts as well. But after all the disaster in World T20 at Dubai, Hassan Ali's back again. A lot of memes and counters really going towards his end, saying, okay, if you want to play him, but just make sure that he's not going to field it mid wicket, perhaps, right? So Hassan Ali is back. Despite that, I mean, I think you can really take a dig at Pakistan's politics and everything if there was a certain Shoaib Malik in the team because there's a entire PR machinery apparently as they call it, and the whole chaos around Shoaib Malik's presence and whatnot. But he was not picked. But Hassan Ali's selection actually invited a lot of discussion, but let's face it, he's done amazingly well. Fairly young, can bat really well, a decent fielder too. I mean, it's tough to prove that as a pointer currently, but yeah, that's how it is. So overall, I think Pakistan are really balanced with the bowling batteries of Naseem Shah, Shahnawaz Dahani, mm, you know, Haris Rauf is known for he did really well the last time around too. And Usman Khader and Shadab Khan, both of them can bowl really good spin. So these are some very critical factors. And of course, the usual, uh, I say, responsibility lies on Babar and Rizwan, and something strike rate is something that they need to be uh, they need to keep in mind because they do have genuine strong hitters. But at the same time, Pakistan is Pakistan. You never know what can necessarily happen with them. So that's my take on Pakistan. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely agreed on that. It's typical mercurial Pakistan. You never know what you're going to get from them on a given day. But I would say it remains to be seen how they react on the day in big tournaments when both Babar and Rizwan fail, and that can happen at any point of time. We saw how India were found wanting in 2017 and 2019 when their top order did not perform in critical finals and semi-finals, and team crumbled down. So they're heavily dependent on Babar and Rizwan, and you cannot expect them to score in every match. So how do the other batsmen and the field order cope up, especially when they lack experience now in the form of Hafiz and Shoaib Malik? Remains to be seen, and that's a big question mark. And similarly, with their bowling department as well, they are heavily dependent on Shaheen Shafri. So he's also not going to be part of this Asia Cup. But how do they react as a bowling unit to that also remains to be seen. If they come out trumps, then kudos to them. And if they do not, then it shows how heavily they are dependent on certain stars to carry their team rather than developing a well-rounded and a balanced team would be the question. As we all know that they have always been dependent on individual brilliance. How do they manage to play as a team remains to be from my perspective. But nevertheless, there'll always be a force to reckon. And one trivia is that there have been 14 to 15 Asia Cups that have been played in history so far, and India and Pakistan are yet to meet in the final of Asia Cup even once. So who knows, this time could be the time. But it was a startling fact. I mean, earlier Asia Cup was only played between India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, and despite that, India and Pakistan have never been in the in the finals, which was a surprise. But let's see what they have got on the table. Uh, so that leads us to the other teams, sadly, who have not been much in spotlight, but I think they're going to give each and everyone a good run for the money. Start off with Sri Lanka. As far as I am concerned, they are the dark horses of this tournament. It's been a while since Sri Lanka have been a force to reckon with in international cricket, post the retirement of Sangakkara Jayawardene, Malinga, and Dilshan. They have invested in youngsters who they thought would be able replacements for these players, but they have been hard done by and have struggled to put a competitive unit for a long time in between. Slowly, as far as the T20 setup is concerned, I think they've got a good crop of youngsters coming up, and I will not be surprised if they uh, cause an upset or two. You know, they are ably led by Dasun Shanaka, who